Hello YouTube people. I have here my artillery Sidewinder X2, and I guess I modified it quite a bit. I have a Hemera hot end or extruder on here. I put some files on Thingiverse how to do that, but mainly if you look up here, I have this filament sensor, and it's hard to make this work. I should mention I'm using Klipper, but it's hard to make this work because I've traced the wiring, and the standard connector or the factory connector here actually goes down here to this display board here, this flat touchscreen. But in Klipper I have totally disconnected this, and so the filament sensor only seems to work through this display board. And also I don't think it can work through like Octoprint or anything that comes in through the main board over here on this side will not. I don't think can use the filament sensor. So what's the workaround for that is, as you see, I've disconnected this wire, this connector here, and I've got my own harness going there, and it comes down the side here, and it goes to this connector here. And this is kind of an unused connector, and it apparently is a holdover from the artillery Sidewinder X1 version, where it's used as a Z-axis a sensor. Anyway, but that's not used on the X2 because they have this touch sensor here. So anyway, so I have connected it through here to here, and this still goes over to the main motherboard on this side here, and it runs on 5 volts, whereas this one up here uses only 3.3 volts. So out of maybe an excessive caution, I put 3 diodes in the voltage line, the 5-volt line, and that lowers the voltage down to about 3.5 volts just in case. I'm not sure this is necessary, but there's 3 diodes in here. And then other than that, that's all I did was to take the sensor and hook it up over on this side. And so let me continue upstairs, and you can see here where I'm not using the touch screen, where this has got Klipper screen on it, which is the version of using with Klipper instead of using this flat display over here. Okay, anyway, I'm going to show you how to set it up in the config file, the Klipper config file. By the way, I think it might be possible to do the same thing with Marlin, but you'd have to somehow recompile the firmware, and I don't know how to do that. Okay, let me continue upstairs. Thanks for standing by for part 2. And here I'm in the house, and I'm showing the Klipper screen, and I'm using so-called mainsail interface, but I think this is maybe work with any of them. So if you go to machine and you go to printer.config, and you see here I have these 3 lines in there, so I declare a filament switch sensor here, and I arbitrarily call it FS. And then so you have to, so this here says pause on run out is true, and this causes the printer to go into a wait state if the filament runs out. And then you got to tell it switch pin : PA0, and this is the pin on the processor board, the motherboard, where the Z end stop sensor used to be. Okay, so you're using that same pin where that wire is routed to, and then of course you save it and restart it, or so you can do save and close. I'm not changing anything. And then the other thing is, when you do this, when you set this up, I got this Klipper.config file, or mainsail.config, and this gets loaded up when you install mainsail. And you see here there's several, like these are macros, and if you understand this language, you know, like, more power to you, because I don't understand it, but I studied, I can figure out a little bit. But if you go here, so there's this one here called resume, and when you tell the printer to resume after the pause, this gets executed. And I found a problem where this would crash because it would tell it to extrude too much filament when it started back up. And so what I did was right here, this is just me, you know, shooting in the dark, but I put this here G91 here, and this tells the printer or the thing to go into a relative mode. So, you know, it won't try to extrude the filament all the way back to zero where the print started, but it'll just try to go from where it's at now to what you can, you know, what you command. So, and then this variable extrude is set to 1. So you go to relative mode G91, it's just a new thing I put in there. Then it tries to extrude, you know, this extrude value, which is 1 millimeter, which works fine. And then after this is all done, I go to G90, which sort of reverses this, and I go to absolute mode. So that's kind of what you need to do. Maybe you don't need to do this on your printer, but this is, I found, to make it work on this. Anyway, when you get this set up, if you run out of filament, then you can leisurely go out there and you know, it'll stop and pause, and then you can go out there and you can kind of unload the old filament piece and put in a new roll, and you're off you go. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope it's useful.